Hi everyone. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Riley. Welcome to my garden, and today we're talking about 10 things I wish I'd known before I started my first garden. The number one thing I wish I'd known before I started my first garden is it's okay to miss the spring planting season. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's smarter and it's better to start with a fall garden for your first garden. And the number one reason I can think for this is there's no need to start your seeds indoors for those long season vegetables like peppers or eggplants. You don't need an expensive seed starting setup. You don't need to worry about buying timers and setting up an indoor grow system. For those plants that you will start in seed starts before you transplant into your fall garden, like I have here, some bok choy, some kohlrabi, some spinach, you can start those seeds directly outdoors. You don't have to worry about putting in that extra investment for a grow light system. Number two, start small and start in a raised bed. And by small, what I mean is a 4 feet by 4 feet raised bed. I've had countless sized raised beds since I started gardening, and the 4 foot by 4 foot design is my absolute favorite. You have access, easy access to every single inch of this 4 foot by 4 foot bed. You can grow a lot of vegetables in that bed, and it's less expensive to fill your first raised bed with good quality soil, which is what you absolutely need for success for your first garden. Number three thing I wish I'd known before I started my first garden is to build that first 4 foot by 4 foot raised bed with 2 by 8 inch lumber, meaning that raised bed is going to be 7.5 inches deep. 2 by 8 is 1.5 inches by 7.5 inches. Why? Two reasons for that. One, that 7.5 inches deep is deep enough for you to grow root vegetables like carrots. Number two, it's only going to take about 8 cubic feet of good quality soil to fill up that 4 by 4 foot by 7.5 inch raised bed if you leave an inch to an inch and a half for mulch on top of that soil. So less expensive to build, easier to build, cheaper to fill up. Thing number four, when building a raised bed, it's important to pay attention to the crown of the wood, because wood assembled with the crown facing outwards has more of a tendency to separate no matter how many screws you use to assemble that raised bed. Every piece of lumber has a crown or an arch to it. So it's important when we're assembling our raised beds that we assemble them so the arches are facing each other. The arch on this piece of wood is going this way. So if I were to assemble it to the raised bed facing outward, that wood will continue to warp or bend. It will eventually separate itself from the connecting piece of lumber. Thing number five that I wish I'd known before I started my first vegetable garden. Pests will find your vegetables. Be proactive. And we can do this in two ways. The first way is before you transplant into your fall garden, let those transplants grow as big as the container they're growing in will allow. Bigger, healthier plants can withstand a little bit of pest damage without succumbing to that damage. These eggplants behind me were fairly large before I transplanted them in. There was immediate pest damage on these plants when I transplanted them, but because of the size and because they were healthy when I transplanted them, they overcame that damage, and I've already harvested eggplant from my fall eggplant plants. Thing number two on being proactive is use preventative organic pest control measures for pests in your area. One of my favorites is Bacillus thuringiensis for caterpillar control, but do your own research. Google what are the garden pests, garden insects that can damage fall crops in your area, and then search what are proactive measures for those pests and do them in the beginning. Don't wait till those pests show up, because they will show up. If you've liked this video so far, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you'll be notified next week when we put out our next video. Thing number six I wish I'd known when I started my first garden: use the best quality soil that you can afford to fill that garden bed. Now, if we start with a 4 foot by 4 foot bed, And we build it out of 2x8 lumber, which are what I recommend from the lessons that I've learned from gardening. Then we're going to need about 8 cubic feet of good quality garden soil to fill that bed. And to do that, you've really got a couple of options. Number one, go with the best quality organic potting soil you can find. Buy 8 1 cubic foot bags of that and fill that bed up with that. That's going to cost, though, about $80 to $100. A less expensive version of that option would be go with a less expensive raised bed soil and supplement that with some slow release organic fertilizer, and you can do that for about half the price. The seventh thing I wish I'd known when I started gardening, make sure you have a hose that's going to be able to reach your garden bed, and put a large watering container out there near your bed. Fill that watering container up once a week, add a watering can, and you're going to be much more likely to make sure that you give your plants water when they need it. Number 8, plant spacing. For your first garden, in your first garden bed, the easiest way to do plant spacing is use the square foot gardening method. Now, you don't have to build a grid over your bed and block it off into 1 foot squares, but whatever vegetables you're going to grow, do a Google search for square foot garden spacing vegetable X. That's going to give you a really good idea how to space your vegetables out in your 4 foot by 4 foot bed. You won't be confused by the information on the seed packs, which are designed for people that are growing in traditional row gardening and are going to give you the best chance for success for those vegetables you grow in your first garden. The 9th thing I wish I'd known before I started gardening, some of the crops that we plant are going to fail. It's just inevitable. Expect not everything to go perfectly. Some things are not going to go perfectly, but you're certainly going to learn more from those things that didn't go perfectly from those things that did go perfectly. Finally, number 10, I wish somebody had told me when I started my first garden, start composting immediately. It's easy to do. All of the material you need you can get right from your own home, and this is the best food to feed our soil so the soil can feed the plants to ensure a successful garden year after year. Well, everyone, that's it. Thank you for watching the video. Certainly appreciate it. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you'll be notified next week when we put out a new video.